Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He's Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. As we do our first live show in February. My gosh.
Yeah.
It's already the 3rd. Where's this month gone?
Yeah, there was some award show last night.
So right as the music started, Alan starts the music. I'm putting on the headphones. Yeah. I ask her, hey, was there an award show last night or tonight?
And I know, I guess a few of the people the women on the red carpet, looked like they were naked or, they were in so little clothes.
Yeah.
Normally that's the Golden Globes, but
yeah. All right.
But, they were. But then again, I mean, that it was. I can understand you not. If you saw this audio cut, you probably said, "Well, this can't be a Hollywood kind of show."
Okay, so it was the Grammys. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because of what I say, the Oscars.
No, you didn't say anything.
Okay.
I was wanting to confirm because I think I saw something in a push notification. I was like, oh, man, I'm so glad I don't have to watch that stuff.
This is because this might have thrown you off a little bit.
Okay, all right.
Joy Vila being interviewed.
I think the ones that should be deported are being deported. To be honest, I'm a Latina. My family came from this country to this country legally, and I love to see rapists, human traffickers deported.
So, I mean, you might have been confused and saying, well, that had to be some type of maybe Trump rally or something, not an award show.
I thought maybe there was a party at Mar-a-Lago.
Yes.
By the way, to that nice young lady, your career's over. No one is going to. By the way, it's kind of sad to say it's not Hollywood. It's it's the music industry, and the music industry is and it's not her fault, but. Long before she came around, I'm sure is pretty much dead. You can make music, you can't make money.
Yesterday, she's talking about illegal immigration.
Yeah,
I had heard in L.A. and Dallas and other cities, there's going to be massive illegal immigration protests.
Yeah,
and so I'm like, okay, and this, by Saturday. Yeah. Authorities in Dallas were saying, stay away from Dallas, stay away from Dallas.
Avoid the downtown area, that kind of thing.
Right, exactly. And so then it gets to be Sunday afternoon, and I see protest in downtown Dallas. I'm like, here we go. I'm like, wait, it's where? What? Oh, it's over Luka being traded to L.A.
Yeah.
Oh, that made more news than any protests.
Right. Yeah, no, here locally, it was...
Security officials had to come in to help break it up. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, it's funny because then I saw, because I was getting all my notifications locally from like Channel 8, and, so it was the local thing here in Dallas, and then New York Post I got a notification from New York Post. They were doing a story on it. By the way, Luka and the Lakers is the name of my next band.
Ooh, I like that.
That's I don't know what that is going to be though. I think it's Luka and the Lakers has to be yacht rock, right? The Lakers, us old folks in our RVs on the lake shore, Luka and the Lakers.
Luka and the lake.
Yeah, it's got to have. Yeah,
I just like the reason for that trade. Basically,
they're angry.
The reason for the trade that came out from the Mavericks.
Yeah,
he's lazy.
Yeah.
That's what came out of it.
Yeah.
He's lazy. He doesn't come in condition. He's up to almost 270 pounds. The guy's lazy. Now, the thing that I noticed, the thing that caught me to show you how I think had nothing to do with basketball because I haven't paid attention to the NBA in, 25 years, 30 years. Just don't pay attention to it. I hate the basketball in it. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that came to my mind is, his state income tax in Texas was 0%. His state income tax in California will now be 13%.
Yeah.
And I thought about that and went, and I guess also, and you've got other states, and I don't know how this works. You've got other states that if you play in there for one game will tax you for working there.
Yeah, well, New York City, actually.
New York
if you
City.
work for
Right.
1 day, you
Now,
gotta pay a tax.
does that mean if you work for 1 day in New York, that California doesn't still tax you?
No, I
Because
I
your
don't
place,
know for sure, but I think they still tax you.
right? Because your place of residence is still there,
Right, yeah.
and so I did some figuring.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think his contract right now, he makes something like $45 million a year.
Yeah.
So let's say after agent fees and everything else, and remember merchandising and everything else, let's say his overall salary, his taxable income is $30 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
All right.
$2.7 million additional in income tax a year. Now you say, no, wait a minute, it's only $2.7 million over 10 years. That's $27 million, and that doesn't count how you would invest that money and what you would make on it.
Yeah.
And it goes back to when you and I remember when Phil Mickelson was saying, I'm going to move to Florida where there's fewer taxes. Remember, he was eviscerated for it.
Right.
And you and I actually figured out because he was making like, what was it? I don't know, 50, 60 million a year.
Yeah.
Or we figured out what his net income would be, like 50 or 60 million. And we went, well, wait a minute. If you take 13%, and that's, that's $7.5 million, roughly. We're doing this all. This is all, a rough, guesstimation. $7.5 million a year, and you put that over 10 years. That's $75 million.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't care how rich you are. Nobody wishes to pay $75 million. And remember, that's before you invest it and make money over that 10 years on everything that, you're saving or investing over that period of time. That's $7.5 million.
Right.
And it's just like, it gets to some serious cash. And I really wonder, when is that going to affect where major league players want to play?
Yeah, I don't know. You don't read a lot about it on the whole Phil Mickelson thing, as you mentioned, we talked about. But in terms of leagues, it happens when someone moves to a state that has no income tax. So when someone comes to Texas, sometimes the athlete or someone commenting on it will say, yeah, now they can save on all those state taxes, blah, blah, blah.
Jordan Poyer, before he left the Buffalo Bills and went to the Miami Dolphins, said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, I can make a lot more money just because there's no taxes in Florida.
Yeah.
And I've read a couple of articles where that's something now on the radar of every single agent.
And I wonder how does the league handle that? I mean, you think about that. I mean, the league, I guess, you really don't have a choice. You stay out of it. You don't really make it a deal. You don't talk about it. Or
that's between you and the agent. But agents now, I've read a couple of articles on it, in these high tax states are saying we need more because they'd make more if they played in Dallas or they played in Miami or if they played in San Antonio.
Yeah,
and so we need more money here.
It's called grossing it up. You have to gross it up to basically accommodate for the taxes. Increase in taxes I'm going to pay.
Because it's, as I said, I mean, if you're somebody, because you see some of these baseball salaries, they're making $60 million a year. The quarterback, $60 million a year.
Right. Yeah.
Well, then you take endorsements, and that's you take endorsements and everything else. You've got some of these people making $100 million. Tiger was making, what was Tiger making a year?
Oh, I
and
don't know.
You know why? You know why?
Insane.
You know why he made his residence in Florida?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you think about it. I mean, he's made over $1 billion, right?
Right.
And so if you've got over $1 billion taxable income, 13% is $130 million over a period of 10 to 20 years.
Well,
nobody wants to give. Well, they make enough. They don't go. Yeah, they do care. Nobody's going to give up $130 million. Agents aren't going to go. No problem. $130 million or $80 million or $50 million. It's no big deal.
Well, Trump with Mar-a-Lago. He's able to, because it's only worth $100,000 according to a judge. So he's able to pay very low taxes.
Oh, man, we got a great show ahead. Well, for the first time as president, Trump finally did it. He said yesterday, this is the thing that we've been talking about, the Republican Party and the populace and where they're going, and Trump on tariffs, and it's going to be great and beautiful. He finally said yesterday, for the first time in either term, that tariffs will harm Americans, which means the cost of goods and services are going up.
Yep.
That's the first time he's ever said that.
Yep.
That's been our major beef, is the fact if you want to use it, and you're saying you're using it as a negotiating standpoint, you better be honest with the American people. Don't BS like the Democrats do on the minimum wage.
Right.
And they were trying to do it. Some of the biggest BS, I'm sorry, because I like him a lot, but some of the biggest BS came from J.D. Vance when he was, before the election on tariffs. Well, there's no indication that it raises prices or raises inflation whatsoever. And we've said, well, of course it does, just like the minimum wage. And I remember, I forgot who said it. It was a bunch of Trump surrogates when somebody said, Americans pay the tax on it. No, the tax is put on the good before it comes in, so they're taxed. Well, that's like saying the minimum wage when Republicans would say, well, the minimum wage is a tax on consumers. No, it's not. It's simply a raise, as Democrats would say. It's simply a raise of pay for the employee. Yeah. And then the employer may have to bear the cost of it, but it doesn't affect the consumer at all. Well, of course it does. You cannot change economics.
Here's the thing, too. Politically, it's just like cutting spending, right? People say, well, yeah, we need to cut spending. If you were to go in and cut spending in a serious way, right? We're trying to tackle tens of trillions of dollars in national debt. If you went in and cut spending, you actually did it, people would be screaming. We go back to one example of Obamacare. 2016 GOP, we're gonna gut Obamacare. 2017 GOP, well, our constituents really like Obamacare. We're just going to gut the funding mechanism.
Did you see Elon Musk saying that they'll soon be up to, here the next couple of weeks, $4 billion of savings a day? So that means by the time, so you get to, 364 days of the year times 4 billion?
Yeah. Is that like when I bought my truck and told my wife I paid below MSRP, like everybody does?
Well, does that mean we're going to be saving $1 trillion?
Thousands of dollars.
Does that mean we're going to be saving $1 trillion a year by the end of the year?
Well, show me.
I hope so.
When we get there.
I hope so.
I want to see it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But no, we won't.
Well, it's like, asking if you've got kids in school, if you've ever had kids in school, hey, how are your grades going? Oh, they're going great. They're going great. Come around 1st of May. Oh, crap, that's due today. It's, this is where we are. There is, if there's a negative impact and people feel it, they're going to scream. Loyalty is out the window when you're having to pay even more than what you're paying now. That's the problem, is that the people that voted for the GOP, that voted for Trump, many of them, and it's not realistic, we know this, were expecting prices to come down in the first week. We know it doesn't work that way. We know that. But they were expecting prices to come down. If they see a jump in prices in the short term instead of the other direction, and the media is going to point straight to they're not going to do anything in this case except point. This is what cost it. This is what cost it. They'll remind everybody. They didn't do that so much with the liberal media, with the spending in the Democratic Party when we had inflation. Well, they'll do it here.
Well, as you can see, part of the problem that Republicans, I've just gone through social media, hardly any Trump surrogate is saying, this is great, the tariffs. You don't see it out there. Because half to a majority of the Republicans still believe the tariffs is a tax on the people. And what they're scared of is inflation. And the one thing is, why didn't he wait to do this after he got the taxes, the whole tax thing done, and got economic growth going before he put something in that would slow economic growth? That's the concern of most Republicans right now. That's the concern, and it's sitting in the bank. I saw a couple of my friends that were like, "Well, this is simply a negotiating." Well, it's negotiating until you actually put it in.
Well,
and what are you negotiating?
And he said, in his post on Truth Social, will there be some pain? Maybe, and maybe not. Well, he knows there will be pain.
Well,
he knows that.
Yep.
And that's the problem. By the way, that's the first time he's even brought that up.
That's what I said. It's the first time he's ever.
If you look at again the landscape, why only 10% for China? Well, because we get a boatload of stuff, quite literally, from China. 10%, only 10% on oil from Canada. You kind of slow roll this thing. Well, if you're going to make an impact, if you actually want to do the deed, then you go the full 25 across the board.
Yeah. And it's not going to make sense to most Americans. You put 25% on Canada and 10% on China.
Right. And the reciprocation started almost immediately.
Well, you could see it before he stated that there would be some pain.
Yeah.
He made it clear that the pain was coming by only putting 10%. Of religion, they said 0% on oil.
Right.
Then they said, well, we got to throw something on, so 10%.
Right.
And then the 10% on China, they're like,
right.
They know it's going to cause price increases, and they're trying to do everything they can to ensure that it doesn't. And that's where I said to them a long time ago, don't lie about it. Let the American public know that you're trying to get to a particular goal, which I'm not sure what that specific goal is at the moment.
Right.
Because you're not going to stop illegal drugs from crossing the border.
Yeah,
and what amount would be satisfied to drop that?
Yeah, I don't know how you measure it, and how long does that take?
It never was about. It might have been about the border and fentanyl. You can make the case with Mexico. You can't make it for Canada.
Right. Well, because the southern border was wide open.
Yeah, you can't make the same case for Canada at all.
Right.
And that's the problem he's going to have. And the stock market, I saw the futures was down close to 700, and that was an hour and a half ago. I haven't checked recently.
A little over 6, I think 630. Down 642. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So, those are the indicators that show, all right, it's going to cause hurt. And that's my thing to all the populists in the Republican Party. Don't lie. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Tires command a lot of attention. As a top expense for drivers and a leading cause of CSA violations, any tire maintenance practice that can help extend tire life is worth consideration. Consider tire balancing, which can set you up for savings and a smoother ride before your tires touch the highway. Tire balancing corrects an uneven distribution of weight in tires and wheel assemblies, but the trick is to be proactive and not reactive. Conduct routine tire inspections and pay special attention to any unusual wear patterns. Once unusual tread wear is visible on a tire, its traction and stopping distance is reduced and its lifespan will likely be shortened.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. More on the tariffs coming following the bottom of the hour. I will tell you this, though, that I was it was a Canadian website, and they were saying, boycott Tim Hortons now because it's owned by the American company Burger King. Burger King is owned by a company from Brazil. Tim Hortons is owned by a company from Brazil, not the United States.
And Brazil is owned by Elon Musk. So it kind of comes back full circle.
Well, and the whole thing was, well, what do we do? Because if we boycott that, then the employees that work there, they want, and it's like, well, now you're starting to understand how economies are intertwined.
Exactly. Yep. That's funny.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. You know, the other thing is, politically, when you look at this, the challenge that Trump has in the tariffs is, number one, he has admitted, and when he wrote it this morning, this will be the golden age of America. Will there be some pain? Yes, maybe, and maybe not. But we will make America great again, and it will be worth the price that must be paid. And someone got to him inside. I don't know who it was inside, but the problem is right now you don't have people like Steve Moore and Larry Kudlow in his administration anymore advising him, and going up against the protectionists like Navarro and others.
Right.
And, Navarro talks like as if as if tariffs are what bring you success. And whether anybody likes it or not, when you increase the cost of anything, there's going to be a reaction. You and I have talked about this for such a long time that I've come to the conclusion that the populists, which are taking over the Republican Party, need to learn about economics. And they're not going to learn about economics unless they're hurt by it.
Yep.
And that's it. So I look at it, and politically I look at it and say, whoa, because Trump flinched yesterday when he said there may be pain.
Yeah.
But the pain is worth it'll be worth the price that must be paid. And so that's an admission. That's a change right there. Because as president, he has never said that. Right. They went through the campaign as if tariffs were the greatest thing, where Americans would feel no suffering whatsoever. And they found this magic loophole that all of a sudden, if we put tariffs on it, we're going to have unbelievable success. That in all the centuries upon centuries of trade, they just figured out the tariffs actually work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, whether it's just, the negotiating point goes away once the tariffs are implemented on both sides. And then it becomes, okay, you just keep ramping it up. Trump said, well, the Mexican tariffs take effect now, today, Canadian tariffs tomorrow. And then, China's also in there. And then it's like, well, what about Europe? Well, we're going to get them too. And it does sound as if Trump at times talks as if he believes the United States itself can produce all of its own products by itself and take us to some sort of success. It's bizarre. The things that he talked about, even in here where he said, let me see, the ripoff in America with both regards to trade, crime, and poisonous drugs are allowed to so freely flow in America. Those days are over. The USA has major deficits with Canada, Mexico, and China, owes $36 trillion, and we're not going to be the stupid country any longer. He's trying to compare our national deficit to the trade deficit that we have with certain countries.
Right. Yeah, they're not the same.
Doesn't make any sense.
Right.
One does not relate to the other at all.
Right.
And so you read what he says, and it's just a gobbledygook of stuff. It's like, and I'll tell you this, it was never about the fentanyl. I'm telling you right now, it was never about the fentanyl. That's why that's how they got the emergency. The emergency to do it is on fentanyl.
Yeah.
The reason he's doing it is because of the protectionists inside saying tariffs are going to bring you success trade-wise. That's why he can't help going beyond the fentanyl and saying this is, because it's not a trade emergency. Remember, our trade policy with Mexico and Canada was created by whom?
By Trump in his first term.
By Trump. Trump is communicating to the world that he failed on USMCA. Now, you and I had said way back then on USMCA when, Trump supporters were like, oh, we got rid of NAFTA. We went, no, you didn't. It's been updated in certain ways, and there were a few things on automobile parts, but basically USMCA is NAFTA. There's really no
Right.
difference in it.
Right.
He promoted it as a difference. That's right, we're going to do it. And everybody cheered and everything else. And now he's saying, and that's why he's got to say fentanyl, because he can't say it's an emergency on trade because we have a trade agreement. The trade agreement's there. The only way that he can supersede the trade agreement is to come up with another emergency. That's why he's using the fentanyl. You probably can make that political case to the American public because of the border of Mexico. Very tough to make that with Canada.
Right. Right. Yeah,
Can't
in fact, there's a number of cases you can make with China. You win all day against China.
Yeah.
People are, that's just the way it goes. And China's earned a lot of that flack that they get. In fact, all of it. But the problem is that when people go through the pain, when the pain begins, everyone will say, well, wait a minute. Just like he flinched, everyone in their loyalty will be, wait a minute. Why is this costing me so much more? Again, it's just like cutting, if you're cutting spending, what are you going to do? Where are you going to cut? There's going to be political backlash against you if you start cutting. Okay, everybody takes a haircut. 1%. Try 1%. And then sit back and listen to the screaming when the cuts actually happen. I'm not saying it's right for that to be the case. I'm telling you it's the case.
The other political challenge he's going to have is, as we've seen, the Dow futures down drastically. We'll see what happens later on today. And
it held steady up until late Sunday. It dropped about 300 or 400 points, and it fluctuated there. And I thought, okay, what's going on with the market? And then it, later on Sunday. Now, the Dow lost points on Friday because of the talk regarding the tariffs.
Right.
And now the Dow futures down between 600 and 700 points. It keeps fluctuating up and down. But the market's basically saying, all right, I'm standing next to my best friend on this bridge, and he's got the bungee cord tied to his waist, but I don't know if he's really going to jump. And by the way, this is because if it starts going into effect, then companies are going to feel it. Companies are going to make decisions. They're waiting for the wide market reaction, CEOs and governors of states, which we're already hearing from. All of these things go into play. And here's the problem, too. When you start this big, your save or fix, in the end, if you come around and say, all right, we're going to work a deal, and, okay, the tariffs are gone.
Oh, I think you may see that in the next couple of weeks.
I don't know how you don't if the markets continue to go into turmoil. There's no way politically you want that. Again, this would be seen as your first major step because it has the greatest impact.
Yeah.
When you talk about lowering taxes, okay, well, or the tax cut extension, right? It's like, yeah, people don't see that right away. It's like, okay, and in the future we're going to do this, and that's more of a planning thing. Tariffs go into effect, and there's going to be that immediate effect, and it's starting right now on the Dow and Nasdaq.
It could be delayed a little bit because a lot of businesses in the United States stocked up on inventory in December.
Well, but it's happening right now because the Dow and the Nasdaq. That's going to affect people's 401ks and everything else. And it's like, well, what's going on? Why is there's, this is the turmoil that begins because there's so much chatter about it. It is the story. I mean, financially, it's the story. And it's a global story. It's definitely making noise. And so the question is, how long do you stand the pain? And do you really want to inflict that much pain in your first month?
I got let me see. Brett sent me this, and here it is. I've listened to your explanation of tariffs, and it makes sense. However, if that explanation was true, why would a country ever impose retaliatory tariffs? Why are Canada and Mexico increasing the cost of U.S. imports to its citizens simply because Trump increased the cost of Canadian and Mexican imports for the U.S. citizens? Well, you could ask that both ways. As I told him, because they want to punish the United States. Both sides get punished in tariffs.
And Trudeau said that about Canadians. He said Canadians and Americans are going to, are going to be hurt by this, but we have to do this because they're doing it to us.
You inflict pain. You inflict pain on yourself and the other person. That's been our point with Trump. Trump has not been honest with the American people until yesterday, which is really amazing that finally, because all along it's been Trump's. Tariffs are wonderful. Tariffs are wonderful. They're wonderful. We're going to fill our coffers with money. There'll be no repercussion at all for U.S. consumers. It will be glorious and wonderful in this. And it's like, stop BSing us.
Right.
And we've gotten flack like crazy from Trump supporters over the years on it. But the whole point is you can't change economics.
Right.
And this is just another attempt by the populists in the Republican Party with the belief, we as a government, we can manipulate the economy to success. No, you can't.
Right.
If things are being done unfairly, like in China, cheating, yes. Then you're going to have to hurt yourself to hurt them and then build trade routes with the countries that are friendly. But to go after the friendly countries first and treat your enemies better than, for example, Canada and even Mexico, except for the border stuff, we do tons of business back and forth, with them makes no sense at all. And then talking about, he's just throwing stuff at the barn. This is the thing. I see everything else he's doing. For example, Panama Canal, wonderful. He's doing so many wonderful things.
Yeah, right.
And then on this, completely incoherent.
Well,
completely economically incoherent as to his explanation as to why he's doing it.
That's the thing. You and I in the pre-show meeting, get straight to the point. What is it you're actually trying to accomplish?
Yeah. What is the parameter? What
do you want
specifically?
Just scrap USMCA, which you signed, you were part of it, you negotiated that, but you want to scrap that when it comes to the Canada and Mexico, North America? What do you want? What is it you're trying to get when it comes to China? Now, we talked about intellectual property rights, but you don't have to explain it to us. The American people need to hear what you're doing. When you promise these things and then all of a sudden after, promising, hey, the economy is going to be a lot better, you mentioned that there will be pain.
Yeah. It's just,
after pulling the trigger on it, there might be some pain. People don't want to hear that right now.
It says the tariff lobby headed by the globalist and always wrong, the Wall Street Journal, is working hard to justify countries like Canada, Mexico, and China, and too many others continue the decades-long ripoff of America, both regards with trade, which is number one, crime and poisonous drugs. You're the one. You created the trade policy we have with Canada and Mexico.
Right.
You created it, President Trump. You are the one that said it's a great victory.
Right.
Politically, this is horrible for him if he continues with this. I have a feeling he may back off on it and claim victory and run and say, okay, we got some little thing here or there. Just like on USMCA.
Right.
On USMCA was like, well, we got rid of NAFTA. No, you didn't get rid of NAFTA. You changed the damn name.
Well,
everybody knew it immediately,
right?
But nobody really called them on it because it was done and they moved on from it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
We did.
Well, do the victory lap. Everybody's looking at the economy. That everybody's looking at their own finances.
Yeah. But we were okay with it. We were okay with him claiming victory because it was more of what we wanted and less of what the protectionists wanted in a trade agreement.
Right. By the way, keep in mind, Elon Musk, if this affected South Africa, we would have to pay 10% more to import Elon Musk.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Coming up, more on the tariffs, more on the Democratic Party. Did you see the video that came out of the DNC on the gender stuff?
Oh yeah,
I mean they're completely insane.
Well,
they're insane.
They're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down. We've said this before. We said it at the end of the Obama administration. He was just months from being done, and we said, look, this is not going to go away. This is not going away. And the left isn't going to change a thing about what they're doing. I don't know how they win elections going forward, but they're not changing a thing.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Coming up on the show, the Democrats of the DNC. Wait till you hear this audio. I mean, they're just...
Boy.
I'm sorry, they're nuts.
Yeah.
They're absolutely nuts.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's
they're so nuts that David Hogue, who's running for one of the vice chairs, sounded reasonable.
Well, yeah.
All right, maybe I went too far there.
It's funny because I was trying to put the meter on reasonable, in my brain when you said that. It's full on radical. And when they don't get their way, they get more radicaler. They've been talking about this for a while, by the way. Look, we just need people who can be radical and explain the radical things. If you listen to what Carville was saying, remember? These people they don't listen to NPR. They don't, in other words, you got to dumb it down. Now they're saying, all right, we got to talk their language and explain our ideas to them. The radicals really don't care. The strategists like James Carville, when it comes to the question, how are they going to win elections going forward? They still have a very strong base. It's not over for them. And I don't know what they do. I mean, I think they'll do lies, lies like Kamala Harris is stronger on the border than Donald Trump, that kind of lie. They'll try these. The thing is, when you go over the top and people are like, okay, you really didn't need to go there. That was such an obvious cringe kind of lie. But they'll, this is what they do. They lie to people and then they, get in your face. I think the radicals are losing. I believe there's more and more people waking up. I believe rank and file Democrats, I think there's a growing number. I'm convinced a growing number of them that are getting more and more frustrated with the radicals and the party that are controlling their party.
We'll get to that coming up here in a little bit. Back to the whole tariffs thing. Well, at least we can discuss the term globalist again.
Yeah, right.
Because globalist is like a variety of words that has different meanings.
Right, yep.
Globalist to us means, for example, that the definition of globalist to people like us means, for example, the European Union, where a bunch of countries decide to go into a European-like union government where you have people that are not citizens of your country making decisions that you don't really have a say in, which affects your domestic policy.
Right.
That's how we've always viewed a globalist.
Right.
That's changed over the last 10 years to mean if you're for free trade.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Which, again, that wasn't the original term of globalist. So when the president uses it, I don't know, because the president has been so good at explaining really a bunch of different things in the first month, but he has never been, in my opinion, coherent on the trade argument.
Well,
he's never been.
In this case, if you're bracing people for pain, you better explain what you're trying to get, and you kind of got to explain how much pain is there's going to be and where they're going to feel that pain.
For example, the car industry, which he hit in the last that he when they talked about USMCA getting rid of NAFTA was huge.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
the other thing before we even get to anywhere. His attacks, it's funny because he's attacking now the Wall Street Journal editorial page, not the paper, but the editorial page, and National Review. They have been the biggest defenders of the lawfare against him, probably more than any other publications in the United States.
Yeah, well, in 2020, they were going over, look, promote these things that you accomplished, and stick to that. Promote your accomplishments over and over at the Wall Street Journal.
Right. The Wall Street Journal was like, could you please promote the things that you've done that are great?
Right.
They've disagreed with him on some things. They disagree with him on the protectionist trade, but they agree with him on a lot more legal immigration. So you've got really... And the National Review is a little bit different as they have independent writers that do it. They still have editors that put out an editorial page, but for the most part, very supportive of Trump and his policies. The Wall Street Journal and National Review are not Trump's enemies. They're some of his best friends in the media, not because they're trying to kiss posteriors or a posterior.
No, they go point by point.
They go point by point because they're issue-based.
Right.
Now, you and I have disagreed with both the Wall Street Journal, for example, when it comes to amnesty and things like that. But the fact is, on most of the issues, they agree with Trump, and National Review even more so, I would say, than the Wall Street Journal. But if you look at it, on the issues, the Wall Street Journal probably agrees. They both probably agree with Trump 90% of the time.
Yeah.
It's not your enemy.
Right.
And the things that they disagree with you on, for example, tariffs, are the same thing they disagreed with the liberal Democrats when it was liberal Democrats and the socialists in the Democratic Party, like Bernie Sanders, that support tariffs.
Yep.
But when you look at it, this comes from the U.S. Trade Representative, the Office of U.S. Trade Representative. In 2023, for example, in cars, $809 billion to the U.S. economy, 11.2% of total U.S. manufacturing output came from the car industry in the United States. All right. Now, has it decreased because of global trade? Has it decreased because of parts made in Mexico and Canada? Well, first off, 9.7 million direct and indirect U.S. jobs. From the Office of U.S. Trade Representative. In 2022, I'm not drinking. Did that come out 2022? In 2022, the U.S. exported $75.4 billion in vehicles and parts to Canada and Mexico. The number jumped 14% in 2023 to $86.2 billion, according to the American Automotive Policy Council. American car makers would be less competitive without the trade. Regional integration is now an industry-wide manufacturing strategy also employed in Japan, Korea, and Europe, aimed at using a variety of high-skilled and low-cost labor markets to source components, software, and assembly. The result has been, now this is in car manufacturing, and manufacturing is a big deal for President Trump. The result has been U.S. industrial capacity in the United States in automobiles has grown alongside an increase in imported motor vehicles, engines, and parts. From 95 to 2019, imports of autos, engines, and parts rose by 169%, while U.S. industrial capacity in automobiles, engines, and parts rose 71%. As the Cato Institute pointed out, the data shows as imports go up, U.S. production goes up. And that's just the reality of it.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's been the case for a long, long time. If you were to lay out the plan of things that aren't made here domestically, and then, okay, because if you're getting into this mindset of, all right, we're going to make everything here. Sounds all noble, but the problem is you got to get those companies here. What's going to attract them? Low cost, plentiful energy. We don't right now, and hopefully this will change. We don't have a policy in place. It goes back and forth with each administration. When the party changes in the White House, nobody wants to invest long term because they know the policy is going to work against them. So you got to get that straightened out first. When you send the message that we're going to go after all of our oil and natural gas, that's a long-term plan. Then you're going to need labor. And that's going to require something Trump wants. Speaking of imports, importing people, allowing people to come here legally to work. Even then, if you had those two things in place right now, it would take a while before you built him the entire landscape of what you need for manufacturing all these things that you, in true protectionist spirit, you're only protecting right now if you are, it's actually not, because they can't, now that, if they're exporting to other countries, they're going to be hit with tariffs as well, or their products are going to be tariffed. But you're only protecting those domestic producers that are already here and set up. But again, you're actually not, because you're going to hurt exports. So the stagnation that happens, this is what's going on with the markets. You can see it in the markets. The reflection is, okay, does he really mean it? Is this really going to hold? And the longer it went into the weekend, the worse it got on the futures. Because investors see this as a problem. And you need those investors if you really want to build anything, if you want to increase, if you want to expand wealth in this country, it's going to require massive investment. And right now, the markets say this is the negative.
I do expect, I think there'll be some, just like in USMCA, token concessions. They'll publicize it. We got this, they got this, and that'll be the end of it, because it can't go on for any significant period of time. No. It's just, and then, Trump will claim victory that NAFTA's gone, and NAFTA's not gone. They changed the name of it. That's about all they did. 97, 98% of it is exactly the same, because when it comes down to it, capitalism works.
Yeah.
When it comes down, and my whole point all along is not that we shouldn't go after China, because we should go after China, but we're letting China off the hook and punishing Canada for what? Canada's the enemy and China's not? I mean, it's bizarre. And that's why you don't see, did you check social media over the weekend where you see normally the surrogates going, yeah. You don't see that on this.
I didn't see it.
You don't see it. Everybody's going, they understand it. Republicans and conservatives aren't stupid. They understand if you increase the cost, there's going to be an economic effect. But this is where I go after the campaign. And J.D. Vance was sent out there, in my opinion, to throw out a bunch of BS that tariffs weren't going to affect anything. And now everybody's going, oh, okay. And I'm sure Trump saw the stock market. I don't know. Does Trump expect the stock market to skyrocket over the tariffs?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because, like I said, when he came out and said there may be pain, but the pain will be worth the cost, Or what is it? The cost will be whatever.
Mm-hmm. The pain is worth what is going to happen down the road.
Right.
Well, the question is, in everybody's mind, well, when is that going to be?
Yeah. Because right now, and we said inflation, and the other thing is not going for the tax cuts first. Everything, you want economic growth, and right out of the box, it's let's hurt economic growth. But if we hurt economic growth, it'll be worth it in the long run. When is that?
Right.
Because if prices start going up on certain goods, and that's why, for example, they only did 10% on oil, because they know that market will react a lot quicker. Yeah, so they admitted, but finally the administration admits that Americans will feel pain from the tariffs, which will be an increase in prices. That's huge that Trump admitted that, because he's never said that. And to me, that was the first flinch.
It's the first time, especially in this entire cycle, the 24 campaign cycle and transition, and now his first couple of weeks. What's different than like the steel tariffs? Remember the steel tariffs? He did that on the fly. And it was like, in his first term, and it was like, whoa, where did that come from? That was problematic. This was a campaign promise and laid out. Now, if you follow the recent pattern of behavior, it tells me, and maybe this is where you're going, where you think, something's going to change in the next couple of weeks, and he pulls back from this. That stands to reason, because everything seems more planned. I don't know if it's Susie Wiles. I don't know if it's because they've been talking about this and they had that plan in place, but you're not telling people what you're going to do or what you're trying to get done.
Yeah.
And how long this is going to take.
Well, what's the negotiating point?
Exactly.
What do you actually want?
What are you trying to win?
All fentanyl must stop crossing the border. That's not going to happen.
And what's the standard? Where's the threshold? What's the measurement?
Right. And their point is, you're the market. Your people are doing it.
Right.
Go after it. Stop it. Cooperate with us at the border. We're more than willing to do it. But like I said, it's when Trump's bringing up that we have a trade deficit and then a $36 trillion government deficit and trying to tie one into the other.
The two aren't related.
The two aren't related at all.
Right.
But like I said, at least finally, for the first time in his first or second term, the president has admitted that tariffs will cause pain for Americans.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a victory.
Well,
it's a victory
it's
because
also another indication that this may be a short-term deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
866-98 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Independents with carrier authority should be mindful that negotiation strength varies as the week progresses. Typically, the highest rates across major segments are paid for loads negotiated on Sundays, and the highest volume of loads for all segments is seen on Mondays. Also, the weekday that tends to be the best for flatbed negotiations, yielding the best rates. Owner-operators tend to have less negotiation strength on Tuesday, which shows the lowest weekday spread between brokers' offered rates and actual paid rates. Broker offers tend to rise by Wednesday as the end of the week is in sight. This day also seems optimal for the 3 o'clock hustle, so-called for its reliance on that afternoon time of day, when brokers are getting nervous, to improve negotiation strength. Stay mindful of this system to maximize your revenue. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. Coming up, some folks want to comment on tariffs. We'll get to that. Plus, The DNC. I mean, what a mess. I mean, good God, the gender binary stuff of how to pick. Oh my gosh, the candidates for DNC chair and vice chair and everything else was the most bizarre thing you could possibly imagine.
Here's the great news. The Democrats, even if they were to win the White House again, which I suspect at some point they might, there's a problem. Because what's the first thing they'll do? Bring back DEI, which guarantees nothing will get done.
Yeah. It's full of identity politics.
Exactly.
I mean, they cannot get rid of it. They cannot stop
really
judging people by groups.
Right.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. The other thing I wanted to say about tariffs is it's interesting because when Trump talks about the subsidy that we're giving Canada, you know what he means the subsidy is? This is really interesting. The subsidy is the trade imbalance.
Yeah, the trade deficit.
The trade deficit is the subsidy.
Right. Which
is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to verify this right now. I saw that Pierre Poilievre of the opposition, maybe the next prime minister of Canada, says actually United States has a trade surplus with Canada when you don't count oil.
Oh.
And the oil, because remember we saw that the oil is sold at a discount. It's sold at a discount to the United States because of Canada's rules of shipping it to other countries. And so there's a glut, so the United States gets a discount on the oil from Canada that's cheaper than the rest of the world market. And Poilievre's case is, if you have a surplus on everything but oil, what's the point you're trying to make with Canada?
Right.
And by the way, the deficit has come down over the years, even with the oil.
The trade deficit.
The trade deficit.
Right.
But it'd be interesting, and I'm going to do the research on it to see if that's true. But Poilievre's saying, no, you have a trade surplus with Canada, except for the oil that you want.
Yeah.
In fact, you're opening up saying, bring down the oil, bring down. So what's your problem with Canada if you've got a trade surplus if you don't count the oil, and the oil you get at a discount and you really want?
Well, he brings up...
That's why you open up the Keystone XL pipeline, the first thing you did.
Right.
What's the point?
Right. Well, that's what you're going to have to explain, by the way, to the American people. You're going to have to outline what your goals are. You're going to have to basically explain to them how much pain it's going to be and how long it's going to be. Or at the very least, hey, we believe Canada will come around very soon, that kind of thing. So you really won't feel any pain because the tariffs won't be in place. I mean, that's the implication. But, when he was talking about, and he made some comments over the weekend about, they don't take our cars, yet we import a lot of cars from Canada. Well, there's a number of manufacturers, U.S. manufacturers, Stellantis, Toyota also, assemble cars in Canada. And so the question would be, because when I was thinking of that, I thought, okay, well, hold on a second. What about the domestic producers? Are you going to go to Ford and Chevy or GM? Are you going to go to GM and Ford and pressure them to, hey, bring all that back over here? I haven't heard that directly. I haven't heard him say that directly.
And then at that point, should every foreign U.S. manufacturer be forced to leave the United States?
Right.
Remember, I don't know what it is this year, but how many years has the most American-made car been a Japanese car?
Toyota. It was the Camry, I think, at one point.
Yeah. By the way, I have verified it. Yes. If you exclude oil from the calculation, the trade deficit with Canada actually becomes a trade surplus with the United States, meaning the U.S. exports more goods to Canada than it imports, excluding oil and natural gas. Essentially, the majority of the trade deficit with Canada is attributed to oil imports from Canada that the United States gets at a discount. Trump is passionate about getting those oil imports, which is why the first thing he did was open up the Keystone XL pipeline. So what's the problem with Canada? Explain that to the American people, and he hasn't.
Yeah.
And it's not fentanyl coming in from Canada.
No, he mentioned that in this, he was talking at, in fact, talking about it when he was talking to reporters at Joint Base Andrews Sunday night from Fox News. They did the story they were talking about, and it mentions the whole thing about cars and everything else, and Canada doesn't take enough. Well, hold on a second. Then are you happy with USMCA or not? You were part of that in your first term.
Not part of it.
I didn't. Well, he orchestrated everything.
It's his.
I didn't hear anything like this is only part one, and we're going to go even further next time. I didn't. Maybe he said that and I missed it back then. USMCA 2.0. I didn't hear that. Maybe I missed it. Because if you weren't happy then why didn't you put more pressure on Canada then to do even more? All these things you mentioned at Joint Andrews to the reporters you were talking to. Are you going to scrap USMCA altogether? Look, we know about the southern border, but a lot of that was because the last administration just opened it wide. Now, I also think it's a totally different game when it comes to Mexico. Get your stuff together internally. The problem is you can't handle your own cartels, and sorry, you're going to have to find a way. And, this is part of the problem is, I mentioned to you in the pre-show meeting, you can't go, war on drugs. It has to be something, if it's going to be about fentanyl in part at all, it's going to have to be, this is going to be their new policy, and this is what they're going to do, because it applies to both Canada and Mexico, and, by the way, China, too. Then you have to trust that that's actually going to happen. This is a pretty long bridge we're building just on fentanyl. So what is it ultimately that you want? What is the administration going to be happy with? What are you going to get out of this? And how's that going to benefit the U.S.? Where are you going with it? Trudeau, I don't trust. Mexico is in general, I don't trust because the cartels run it. China, I don't trust for all the obvious reasons. So,
Trudeau, you don't trust on what specifically on immigration?
Well, I don't trust Trudeau's power. He's not going to be in power long. That situation.
No, I agree, and I want him out. Yeah, I just wanted. I wasn't sure exactly where you're heading. With fentanyl and immigration on Trudeau.
Yeah. Well, what I mean by that, him specifically, if he were to, I don't know, he can promise anything he wants. If something were to happen while he's still in power, some kind of agreement, whatever they came, he can promise whatever he wants and then pardon his whole family while he's walking out the door. You know what I mean? That's really what I was getting at. I mean, he's not going to be there much longer, so he can do what he wants.
Well, I mean, I'd like to see I'd love to see Polyev in there to bring Canada more back to the.
Oh, I'd love it.
More back to the center. But Polyev's one of the loudest voices right now against, what Trump is doing. He's the one that came out and really said, "Look, I don't know what their problem is. They have a trade surplus with us, except for our oil that we sell at a discount to them that they want, which is why Trump opened up the Keystone XL pipeline immediately."
Yeah.
And then he's out there saying, we don't need anything from Canada, including their oil. Well, you just open up that's why I'm saying Trump's becoming incoherent on this. He's just throwing stuff at the wall.
Well, and that's what doesn't match. That's what doesn't match the recent behavior of the campaign team, the transition team, and now the administration. Everything seemed to be pretty well organized.
Yeah.
Maybe not the Matt Gaetz nomination, but things were pretty well organized. Okay, maybe not the labor secretary.
But maybe RFK.
Most a little bit RFK, maybe. There was some, but mostly it was, and at least RFK, when he was up there, was talking about, I'm going to do the will of Trump. I'm going to do the will of Trump. And, the whole Maha thing. And it was like, all right, well, he's in line, right? Everything was in line.
Right.
Everything seems as orderly as it can be for given.
And all the rest of the stuff Trump's doing is wonderfully in line.
Right.
We've been totally complimentary. Now, we did say, just remember, folks, if tariffs are coming, this is where there's going to be disagreement.
Right.
And we're going to hold him to what he actually says.
Right.
Which is why I was actually happy when he mentioned there could be pain for Americans.
Right.
Because he's never said that as president. It's always been wonderful and good. And we said, that's disingenuous. You're not being honest with the American people going back to your first term in there. What stopped him last time, I believe, was Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore being part of his economic team.
Right.
Now he's got all pro-tariff people that are in his head telling him, no, there's nothing to pay for this, which is absurd because you have to completely ignore economics. You have to completely say economics does not exist. It's simply what we will in our minds to exist economically. And, I've never been a fan of Navarro, and he's in his ear all the time now.
Yeah.
And I really thought you and I said it when Trump brought in Kudlow and then Steve Moore as an advisor, we went good because they're anti-tariff.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're using it for a legitimate reason, which would be against China. Now, you can justify with the American people politically for a short period of time for Mexico and fentanyl. You can't make that case for Canada. And on trade, you can't make that case for Canada. And you really can't make that case for Mexico because Trump created the agreement.
If there's any backing away or change or whatever or settlement or whatever, however this goes, all things point to Canada being the first in that group to have things settled. Mexico, there's a huge problem with Mexico that I've had for a long, long time, and having grown up down there on the border in Del Rio, and had a number of friends work Border Patrol. I'm fully aware of the situation that's been in place and how it was catapulted into the stratosphere by the former administration. So there's a lot of work to be done. In fact, if the president wants to call me, I've got some conditions I want met by Mexico on the whole, and before you ease the tariffs from Mexico. Sorry, but it may be a Del Rio thing, but I seriously, there's some serious issues. Mm-hmm. China, we've talked about for years now because that goes back to his first term. But I suspect if there's a deal, if there's any kind of deal or settlement, or they reach an agreement, it'll be with Canada first. We'll see. I don't know.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. One of our listeners, Trump sent us something, said Trump wants the tariffs because he wants to get rid of the income tax. We covered that last week. That's impossible. You can't do it. We did you can do the figuring. Anybody can do the figuring in just a couple of seconds, and we did it based on whether the tariffs would be a lot greater than he has put on now, which he originally promised, which was the 25% on Mexico and Canada, and then 40% on China, and then we just did 25% across the board on everybody.
Yeah.
On everybody.
Yeah,
we did 25% across the board on everybody, and then 40% on China. That still doesn't pay the interest on our yearly debt.
Right.
Forget about the budget. It doesn't pay the interest even on our debt. So when he said that, you notice he didn't say that again.
No, that actually went quiet pretty quick.
Yeah, that went quiet pretty quick because you do the numbers, tariffs. And the other thing is they said, well, it worked. You know, he was making the case it worked before 1913. Well, before 1913, the annual federal budget was 2% of GDP. Now it's 25% of GDP. The federal government does a lot more than it used to do. So tariffs wouldn't cover anything, wouldn't even cover the interest on the debt, and that's not even taken into consideration. If you wanted to get the amount, you would have to, 100%, 150%, 200% tariffs on products. That would mean a skyrocketing cost for the American consumer. And you say, yeah, but they wouldn't be paying income taxes. 50% of the lowest income Americans don't pay any income tax. It would be a huge thing on them, which is why that couldn't work. Look, it's the observation. It's not an opinion. It's observation of how economics works that people have to be listening to.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning.
Good morning.
Overall, though, we had to get to this point where in politics in the United States that, we learn more economics. We learned economics a few years ago with government spending. Nobody gave a damn about government spending. Then inflation came along.
Right.
Well, what's this from? And then on, the Republican Party has, decided to, jump on tariffs, which used to be the exclusive avenue that liberal socialists went down, like Bernie Sanders. But it's what they believe. It's not new to politics. You always get people in there that believe, well, if we have our people in Washington, they can central plan an economy better. And believe me, it's just a different path of central planning, whether it's to stifle the market with a massive minimum wage and regulations, or say I can control the economy with tariffs.
Yeah.
And I can pick the winners and losers. There's no difference. It's just you're taking a different angle at it, a different path. And America needs this. America needs this. And hopefully if they get it, then they'll be forewarned that once you increase prices, and this is the major beef I had with Trump and the surrogates in the campaign and Trump in the first term. This is one of the liberal problems I had with him, is when he, and I'm calling Trump the liberal, is that he promoted tariffs as something that was wonderful and there's no problem and we don't suffer at all. Only the other people suffer, which isn't true. As we found out with the steel tariffs, well, inflation didn't skyrocket because of it. No, but prices did go up, and it was a specific industry. And the losses from people that use steel have been documented, and we brought them to you, and those are American companies. Certainly, you can pick a winner and say, we're going to put in a government policy that helps this business, but you hurt everybody along the line that has to pay higher prices on it.
Right.
And we got out of this. I never thought we'd see it, but one day into the tariffs, Trump came out and said there might be pain for the American public. He's never said that before. And so he's been told, there may be pain. Prices are going to go up. You've got to tell this to the American public. You've got to tell them, otherwise, because the Democrats are staying quiet or saying, wow, we can't believe he's doing this. Republicans are quiet on this. Well, we can't upset the apple cart here because he's done so much, he's done so much right. Republicans are also scared to death because they're like, he didn't put in the pro-growth policies of long-term tax reform first, right out of the bucket when inflation isn't out of control. He decides to do this. We don't know what's going to happen or what the impact's going to be, and we don't because we haven't seen tariffs put on like this. We don't know if there will be a delay on it. There wasn't in the stock market as we've seen,
right?
And so who knows what happens to the stock market? But at least Trump admitted, and this is huge for him because you haven't heard it. You haven't heard from the pro-tariff side. All you've heard of, it's going to be wonderful, glorious, no downside at all. And it's like, stop it. You sound like Democrats on the minimum wage. Don't be economically illiterate. Don't be stupid. Independents, conservatives, and most Republicans understand. Even my buddies that were putting out, well, this is just a negotiating stance. Everybody's saying the price goes. This is only negotiating. This is only negotiating. This is only negotiating. Well, for what?
Right.
For precisely what? And we're told fentanyl. Okay, fentanyl, then when will you drop the tariffs? When fentanyl stops completely. So you want the tariffs permanently. Because at a border this size, you're never going to be able to stop drugs coming into the country.
Right.
And then as we see, I don't at all believe with Canada, I don't think that fentanyl had anything to do with it whatsoever. With Mexico, I know that they knew they could sell it to the American public for a period of time, unless Americans see a price increase on things that they want. But even that is not the reason. Trump is the one who created NAFTA. He is, USMCA, the replacement for NAFTA, which is basically NAFTA. It's 97% NAFTA. It didn't change at all. He cannot go in and say that I need to stop and I need to put tariffs on Canada and Mexico because they've been so unfair in trade and our trade agreement stinks, because he's the one that put it together. And so he has to come up with another emergency and say fentanyl. You can make the argument. You can make the argument for Mexico. You cannot make that argument for Canada. And as we know now, because we did the research after Pierre Poilievre came out and said it, we have a trade surplus with Canada, except for oil. Oil is where the deficit is because we import so much oil from Canada. Trump wants to do it because the first thing he did was put back the Keystone XL pipeline, which is strictly for Canadian oil coming in. That's how important it was for him. So it doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, and if you go after Canada harder than China, which is not going to make sense to conservatives, Republicans, independents, forget about Democrats, it's not going to make any sense to them. If prices start going up, you get the sole blame. And like I said, he flinched by finally admitting that Americans will see pain with tariffs. So that's, right. I look at that and go, okay, we've moved forward on that. We move forward on that, where at least he's admitting pain, which is something I have never heard him say as president.
Well, and then the question is, because everything a Joint Base Andrews talking to the media just hours ago, That's not going to stop. By the way, the media is going to be everywhere. The financial media all day Monday. This is the story. It was the story over the weekend, really. Especially into Sunday. Because now your global trade partners, because he mentioned Europe, might be next. Okay.
Oh, and then he said if they retaliate, we're going to put more on. So I'm waiting for that now since they've both retaliated.
Right.
Mexico started this morning. So will he announce even more tariffs tomorrow? And are we going to keep upping it and upping it and upping it? And where does it end?
And then what happens? What's the forecast for exports at that point?
Yeah.
And that's when he did the steel thing in his first term. And we were like, wow. In fact, everybody was, whoa, where'd that come from? It was on the fly. He was visiting the steel workers and announced it. And it was like, there was no heads up on that. Well, this was promised in his campaign. So if you put that logic together and apply it, it could be that, okay, well, this is going to be his long-term gain or game. Well, if it's a long-term game and it's beyond just steel, it covers basically both North American trade partners, and he orchestrated the entire deal on USMCA. So we're wondering, all right, did that go south? Are they not abiding by USMCA?
He hasn't made that accusation.
I haven't heard anything on that.
And look, the world's looking at this saying, it's not fentanyl. This is a trade thing with him.
Mm-hmm.
He created USMCA.
Mm-hmm.
That's Trump. That's not, you can't even say that's Republicans.
Right.
His trade representatives, everything was approved by Trump in USMCA.
Right.
And they're looking and going, he just wants out of a bad trade agreement that he made. That's how the world's looking at it.
Well, and what all are you going to put in? What's the timeline? Is there going to be a meeting? Any meetings? I mean, I know phone calls happen all the time. But, when they put USMCA together, remember that? I don't know exactly the timeline, how long it took, but it took a minute. And this is going to be, again, one of those deals where, okay, what about the farmers? Are you going to help the farmers again? They had to last time. They had to give the farmers money. The farmers were saying, well, we want our trade routes reestablished. That's what we want. We actually want the business back. We don't want government money. We want the business back. We want the trade routes reestablished. So you've got China, Canada, Mexico, and now possibly Europe. Not a small thing. And politically, my question, too, where's the pressure? We're not hearing much from the GOP on Capitol Hill.
No, except for Rand Paul.
Rand Paul
saying absolutely not.
Right. But you will. Or they will. I mean, we may not see a press conference, but phone calls are being made.
Well, I've heard a couple Democrats go ahead, keep the tariffs on. We win in 26 and 28 if he does.
Right.
Because, again, they understand that inflation killed them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you look at it. I saw Trump at the interview, and he said, well, Canada takes advantage of us. None of our banks are there, and they keep some of our prime products from coming in.
Right.
Well, you wrote that trade deal. What are you doing? You wrote the deal.
Right. Are you changing something about the agreement you put in place?
Right.
Or are you changing everything about it?
All that could have been covered in NAFTA. Excuse me, USMCA, which is, by the way, I keep saying NAFTA because it's the same.
NAFTA 2.
Yeah, it's NAFTA 2 is what it is. And there wasn't this great change as
NAFTA
tried
Junior.
to make it. But the fact is, he's like, well, you're complaining about what you created.
Right.
And you can't even throw the rest of the Republicans in there. It was his trade representative under his authority that created USMCA. And now it sounds like he's telling America it was a complete failure.
Okay, here's the question. with USMCA in place, are you forced to include Canada? Because if you only isolate, no tariffs on Canada, only on Mexico, is Mexico going to come back say that's violation of USMCA?
Oh, yeah.
So your hand is forced. You got to do both.
That's why he didn't say I'm pulling out of USMCA, because that would be admitting a failure. The only thing he could do was say there's an emergency because of drugs coming into the country. Now, you can sell that to the American people on Mexico. You're not going to be able to sell that to them on Canada.
No.
And then when he gets into Canada, it's all about trade. You see that the real reason is coming out.
Well, he gave the list of things there, when he talked to the media earlier.
Yeah, he didn't mention we have this much fentanyl coming in, this needs to be stopped, or I want to cut in half before I take these tariffs off.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the fentanyl.
No, it isn't.
He's got the pro-tariff people and that are telling him that you can tariff an economy to success. And that's what's happening.
Anything on fentanyl from either Canada, U.S., or Mexico, or China, or anybody else, any other nation, would only be as binding as a pledge.
Yeah, that's the message.
Because you're not going to be able to. This is illegal activity. Now, look, the southern border was wide open. We need to put a tariff on Biden's.
Well, again, that was our fault.
Yes, exactly. That's my point.
That's our fault.
Yeah, we need to tariff the Biden family. No more importing money from China. These are the
well, but it's like, Trump, we don't need their oil. The first thing you did was open up the Keystone Pipeline.
Right.
Stop being Democrats. Don't live in the bubble of today. Realize what you said yesterday and a week ago.
Look,
I mean, it's just...
Well, but here's the other thing, too. You already have the negotiating leverage with any other trade partner, with any trade partner, but certainly Mexico. And Canada sees you as, look, I mean, Canada needs the U.S. They need the U.S. to be thriving. So it's more than expected that a new president comes in, new/old president, comes in and sits down and says, hey, we want to realign this. We need you doing this. My point is, in terms of negotiating, he's uniquely qualified. And because of the election in November, he can lay it out there for anybody he's negotiating with, any foreign trade partner, which they're all foreign, any trade partner out there, he can put it out there. You can be a lot more harsh with Mexico, a lot more harsh with China, and the entire world understands. But you start talking Canada and Europe, now it's everybody.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Getting the usual response whenever we talk about tariffs. And we said this, by the way, number one, when I voted for Trump to get rid of the weaponization of government. I agree with the vast majority of what Trump is doing. We've always disagreed with tariffs. We talk economics. We don't talk BS. The only response we've gotten right now is name calls. And could you guys please talk about something else? You're whining. It's like, no. We're telling you,
we don't want to talk about. Yeah. Please listen to us.
You're uncomfortable about it. You're uncomfortable about it because you don't have a debate against how economics works.
Well,
it's that simple, and it's uncomfortable because we're right.
And at some point, it will change. Look, Trump said it. He posted it. He admits. He said there may be pain, but the reason he floated that word pain is because he's had a conversation with somebody on his staff or administration.
Yeah, we're just telling you the truth. If you want to live, if you wish to be liberal Democrats and be in fairyland, that's fine. We don't live in a delusion. We understand economics. We've seen this happen. And if one more person brings up the argument, well, we did it back 100 years ago and it worked. We've already gone through the math. And again, maybe you want to go to the Democrats' new math to figure out things. Mm-hmm. We use regular math. And tariffs are not going to pay for the federal budget.
No, they're not.
Won't come close to it.
They won't replace the income tax.
Yes.
That's not going to happen.
That's a fairyland that you're living in. We deal with the truth, and we don't care. We don't play political idolatry. We don't care whether it's Trump. We don't care whether it's Biden. If you throw BS at people, we're going to call you on it. And if you're too big of a coward to face the truth, that's on you.
Yeah. I don't have any, I don't have any control of what Trump is doing on tariffs. And this is not an opinion on tariffs. It's observation.
Yeah, it's observation of reality and how economics
works. This is
works.
how it works.
Yep.
If the cost of everything is going to go up, well, who's going to pay that? The consumer. Or people quit buying it because it's too expensive. And domestic producers don't just magically appear, by the way, when they're not already here.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. Let's go to Darren in Pittsburgh about tariffs. Darren, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Yes, Gary and Eric Harley. Am I talking to both of you right now?
Yes.
Yes, you're on the air.
Oh, I'm so honored, sir. I just want to tell you that. I always tell you, you're not in our listening area from where I'm at in Pittsburgh, and thank you for getting me in. What I wanted to ask about the tariff thing is, it seems that the world is like, at first they were threatening and everything. In the long run, with the tariffs, especially with automobiles, we had a really successful plant in Lordstown, PA. I don't know if you know that. Like, if you're in Pittsburgh and you drive to Cleveland, you pass Lordstown, and there was a Chevy Cruze manufacturing plant. Not just with automobiles, with also different products that we're purchasing from overseas. Give and take, because there's we
understand that. We're just limited on time. Could you get to your question?
Oh yeah, in the long run, would this, if we could push through and be strong on the tariffs, would that be good on us as a country for and our economy and everything? And because of the total circus that it's been with the last administration. That's what I would like to know. In other words, the world is making it rough at first. But if we push through, it could push through. It could be a good thing.
Well, Russia isn't first with many things. Definitely not an economy. They've got a horrible economy. I can put it to you in a question. I know you shouldn't answer a question with a question, but it makes the point.
Yes.
Do you increase the amount of things you can sell when you increase the cost of the product? Does supply and demand work that if the price of an object goes up, not in the competitive marketplace,
not because of demand,
not because of demand, but because of government regulation, For example, if you drastically raise the minimum wage, you can say, well, the worker benefits. But do you sell more product if the massive increase in the minimum wage causes a 10, 15, 20% increase in that product?
Oh, okay.
You sell less.
I understand what you're saying. Sure.
That's the point that we're trying to do. And as we pointed out to you before, American production in automobiles has been going up double figures every year, selling them and manufacturing them in the North American continent. That's why we went through what the U.S. Trade Representative, this is official government figures, say about the automobile industry, that it continues to grow. Now, that's the actual what we produce. As we've talked about before, and it's the U.S. Trade Representative again, cars, for example, different parts of cars cross the border between Mexico, the United States, and Canada an average of 6 times or more before they're finally produced. So everything's going back and forth, back and forth. It's like, okay, we produce this better over here, you produce it better over there. It goes back and forth. And because of that, U.S. actual production of automobile and automobile parts continues to grow. It's not going backwards because of it. It's growing. Because what makes an economy going is producing a good and a service and making a profit at it, and the productivity and efficiency increasing in making that product. That's what makes an economy go. And if making an economy go, I don't know where an economy has succeeded by saying we are going to make the cost of your product cost more coming into our country, and then the other country retaliating and saying through government edict it's going to cost more over here. You can use it as a negotiating point, but our point is that Trump, since he's been president, I don't know if he said something else before he was president, but since he's been president, he's always said tariffs, if we put tariffs on products coming in, there is no negative for the American public. Yesterday, he changed his mind on that and said, well, yeah, it could cause a problem and there could be pain for the American consumer. So
am I still talking to you, sir?
Yes, you are. All right. Well, look, we got to go. We got to go.
Darren, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
We
got to go.
Appreciate
it, though.
It's look, and Darren mentions push through the pain. Who's going to be the first in line to do that? It's an oversimplification, saying, well, we just push through it. Well, people have been pushing through inflation, and they're not getting it done. There is no pushing through.
It would make sense we talk about China. If you're saying that China's involved in unfair trade practices, and you say we need to put tariffs on there and we need to push through the pain in order for them to follow equal trade rules, that's fine.
The exception to the rule.
That's the exception.
But when you say push through the pain, you're saying everybody. It implies everybody's going to be holding hands. We're all in this together. We're going to go. Well, the consumer doesn't respond that way. The consumer votes with their dollar every day. And the consumer has one goal: to find the greatest value in the marketplace for any product. And their obligation is to themselves and or their family. That's just the way it works. The loyalty, I mentioned this earlier, the loyalty politically goes out the window.
Well, you can see, for example, on a couple of marketing things that you always see out there, buy American, right?
Mm-hmm.
Buy American and buy from small business.
Mm-hmm.
You see that all the time.
Right.
Don't buy from large businesses, buy from. But where are people going to buy from? Does the average person care whether it's a small mom and pop shop or whether they get it cheaper at another place?
They're going to vote with their dollar. They're going to shop based on what they can afford.
Now, you may think that's wrong and immoral, but that's how people react. That's when we say economics. How do people actually react to incentive and disincentive?
Right.
And it's that simple. And the vast majority of people, not that there aren't exceptions to the rule, but it's where do the masses go? You know, he talked about, the last caller talked about, you know, some of the automobile companies. You know, you and I are old enough to remember when Japanese vehicles were considered junk.
Right. Yeah.
And then 20 years later, it was viewed as the opposite. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
And people started buying Japanese vehicles, and then American manufacturers had to step up. It goes back and, you know, it goes back and forth. But the fact is, people will look and say, we want a quality product and we want a return on our investment. That's what we say when we say we observe economics. It's not an opinion. My opinion would be I want to tariff everything because then it will make our economy go great and we can produce everything in the United States, and that would be great and we don't need anybody else. And that's a great emotional argument. It's not based in reality. It's not based in economic reality because economics doesn't care what I think.
No, I'd love to be at a place where manufacturing is booming. You know, it's a fantasy. Because for anyone, any administration to put the toothpaste back in the tube, the 100-year-old tube, and go back to yesteryear when, well, look what we did back then. Well, that's not today. And you can say, well, the global economics, it's the way it works. And Trump knows this. He knows about global economics. He's applying a theory that doesn't work domestically. Because if it's truly going to be protectionist, think about that. Well, then why not start with a 100% tariff on every nation?
Yeah.
If it works, great. 100% every country today. Why don't we see that? Why was it only 10 for China?
Why was it first 0 for oil, then 10%, but we're not going to go to 25% on oil?
Right.
Let's go to Steve in Tennessee. Steve, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Hi.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Very good. What's up?
Well, I was wanting to address the tariffs. It's my thought that it's a way for Trump to bring manufacturing back into the United States. If you take a look at our boxes now, it says made in America but assembled in Mexico. It says made in America but assembled in Canada. Well, why would you pay 25% to send it out, then on the other side pay 25% to receive it back, and pay for your same piece of product going out twice? I used to haul auto parts. I picked up auto parts for Canada all the time. So if they're paying 50% more for their parts, they're going to say, hey, let's just bring all of our assembly back into the United States, and we won't do it in Mexico, and we won't do it in Canada any longer.
Makes sense, except you're forgetting one equation.
And? The
increased cost to the consumer. The entire reason it exists is for consumers to buy something. And if you increase the cost, if you make it so you have to produce it here, which is going to cost you more, you charge more to the consumer, you produce less.
Nah, you're missing the point. They've increased it 50% right now on tariffs. So if we bring it back and they only have to make in the United States.
It's all artificial. It's not in the competitive marketplace. You're saying that government regulation is good if it increased prices, but it won't increase it as much with the government regulation if you bring it back here. But based on where it is today, it will increase the cost. So what you're saying is the beauty of government. The beauty is the government should regulate all prices.
No, it's not a matter of regulation of prices. It's a matter of getting
That's actually exactly what it is.
It's exactly what it is.
It's you're putting a tariff on those goods. That's what that means.
That's regulation. It's government regulation on the cost of a good and service. And what you're saying is, yeah, but if you bring it back here, because what happens is we see it, just like we saw in the steel tariffs, the price of steel went up. And so those companies, the steel companies, made profits. But it was pointed out the U.S. government even saw the job loss in anybody that uses that steel because they had to pay more for the steel. So this loss of jobs were in the other places because less steel was being used.
Well, I'm looking at it as General Motors will realize that they can no longer afford to ship their parts into Canada or into Mexico to have it assembled.
Yeah, we've just gone over this. But the price, bring it.
Also in Canada paying to have it come back.
We know this. We've talked about this already. That's done. You keep going back to the same argument. But you bring it back here. The American companies all come back here, and you say they're going to charge the exact same price of when it was cheaper before the tariffs? No, the price is going to go up based on what it is today before the tariffs took a place on both sides.
Because all domestic producers, and thanks for the call, the domestic producers have to do to stay competitive is to be just under the cost of the tariffed product.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
That's all they have to do.
And the company will only stay here if the tariffs exist.
Right.
There's no reason for they moved because they said we can make more of a profit here. Or as you see overall, though, that's why Toyota makes cars here.
Right.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Interesting that the last caller didn't seem to understand. What he's saying is, well, if you put the tariff here in the United States and it goes over there and then back here, that's a 50% tariff, and therefore companies will move back here. Well, as long as the tariff's in effect, because the companies moved where they moved because it was cheaper for them to produce a product and therefore be more competitive in the marketplace.
Right.
So you move it back here and the tariffs stay, the cost will be more than the cost was before the tariffs were enacted. I don't know why that's not a tough concept.
There's a reason they moved that activity to other countries.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
As always. You know, I don't think one thing that people don't understand is how many countries are involved in making different products.
Yeah.
You know, you and I go back, and this goes back about 10 years ago. I forgot what iPhone it was, where even government analysis looked at it and said, okay, where do these, what makes up an iPhone?
Right.
And they found I think it was 423, I'm doing this from memory, 423 countries, 423 suppliers in 23 different countries. I think it was 420, maybe it was 28 different countries, but whatever. But it was 400, and like 23 of them were in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like things are made everywhere. You look at Ford, for example. This is from the Ford website. A Ford truck is made with parts from the United States, Canada, Mexico, Germany, Japan, China, Hungary, Poland, Sweden, and dozens more companies. And they go through the international suppliers, Ushun of Europe for steering columns that come from Hungary, Vallejo Electric and Electrical Systems starter assemblies from Poland, NHK spring suspension linkages from Japan. So you're talking about when you take something like a car where thousands upon thousands of parts are made all over the world. And that's why when the U.S. Trade Representative, the statistics that comes from the government, looked at auto manufacturing that the last caller brought up, that U.S. automobile manufacturing has been increasing each and every year.
Yeah, right.
Now, because of technology, you may have fewer employees in the actual system, but the amount that they're producing, which is the GDP part of it, is the part that's important. And the reason they do all this is because they want to be able to make a vehicle that people can afford to buy. And when they keep the price down, and the prices we know of vehicles have been going up, a lot of that has to do with, as we know, government regulation to begin with. But when the prices are moderate and they don't go up, because of government regulation, people buy more of them. When you increase the cost, people buy less.
Right.
This is the most frustrating thing for me. And you can tell at times I get frustrated. It's because we're talking simple economics and people just refuse to believe it for whatever reason. That cost doesn't matter. No, people will buy it because it's the only choice that they have. No, they won't.
No, it's, look, we're seeing a situation coming in, for the last 4 years, up until Trump took office. Families struggling. There is no more, and never was any blood in the turnip. You get a second job. You still, because of inflation, you're struggling. There is no loyalty to those families except for to their families. And if things become more expensive, they just can't buy those things. There's a number of things. Remember the COVID computer chip shortage for the car makers?
Mm-hmm.
To your point of where everything comes from. Taiwan, I think South Korea, Taiwan makes a great deal of the computer chips. What happened was, during COVID, everybody worked from home. What did that mean? Everybody's got to get a new device. Companies were buying computers for their employees to work from home. So they redirected the production of those computer chips away from automotive computer chips to the devices that people were buying in massive demand. And they put a total of about $60 billion. Someone put a $60 billion total on that shortage. Well, I don't even know if that starts to cover it. If you look at what we just laid out, the entire ripple effect of that, right? If you factor in everything, I think $60 billion is just the tip of the iceberg. Because of, remember going by car lots, dealerships, and there just weren't any cars. There was no cars. Yeah. There were no cars there. Mm-hmm. Well, it requires, and some of the, I don't know, 2 or 3 of the chip manufacturers coming to the States for the first time happened because they didn't want that disruption, right? And if there was a supply chain issue. They don't want that. And they want to be here in the U.S. to serve a massive market. That's great. But it's only a few. You're never going to get to the point of being able to fully sustain your own economy through manufacturing in the U.S. again. And I know that hurts to hear that, but it's the truth. I don't like that. I would love everything 100% American made. Doesn't work that way anymore. It just doesn't. We're not set up for it, and it's for a reason. And the reason is going back to the consumer. We need better prices. How do you get better prices? By doing what they're doing now. I know nobody likes that. I know no one wants to hear that.
Sure, they like it.
Well, they like the price.
Then they like it.
Politically, they don't. If you ask them the question, should we? Yes. All right, let's do it. Well, there's the pain all over again because the cost of manufacturing here was too great. That's why they went. That's why they left. You know, we don't. We walk in a room and we flip a switch. But we don't think about how electricity actually works. We get in our car and we turn it on and drive to work. We don't think about what's going on in the engine. We don't think about how all these things come together because of the conveniences that are set up. And you're right. In the end, we like the price. And that's what we chose. You can say it's wrong, but something tells me you're doing the same. You're looking for the best value. You're looking for the best value because you're limited. We're not Elon Musk walking around with billions of dollars. We're limited in what we can spend. That's how it works.
And to throw out, because we've been getting this a lot tonight, and we covered this last week. We covered it. I'll cover it earlier. We'll cover it again now. Well, no, you don't understand. This is to get rid of the income tax. You're not going to get rid of the income tax through tariffs. All right. We live in a completely different world. We live in a completely different size of government. Back then, trade was not close to what it is today because we didn't have nearly as many products.
Yeah.
And government was 2% of GDP. 2% of GDP was the cost of our federal government. Now it's 25%. Tariffs, if you tariffed every single good that came into the United States, every single country, 25%. That's every single country in the world that imports to the United States. You would raise $875 billion. The interest on the debt this year is expected to be $1.2 trillion, just the interest. You can't cover the interest on the debt through a 25% tariff on every single good that comes into the United States. I'll let you know, I raised the figure. The figure of total goods was $3.15 trillion coming into the United States in 2023. I rounded it up to 3.5. I don't even know. The increase may not be that great in imported goods, but I did it anyway,
right,
just to be liberal on the figures. But even if it was 3.5 trillion in imports coming into the United States, that would raise $875 billion. That's not close to the money you need. And because you're not talking about the decrease in the amount of produced goods or imports coming into the United States, there would be less money year by year on that if more was being forced to be produced in the United States because the tariffs were so great. Prices would go up, and people would say, yeah, but you have no income tax. Yeah, but 50% of the working population in the United States pays no taxes. So you can't get there. You cannot get there. So the reason, and Trump brought that up a couple of weeks ago or last week, we challenged it, and then you heard nothing come from the White House again on that one.
Right.
Because it's just not there. The math isn't there. And I know we dealt with this for the debt for the longest time. Well, you guys are exaggerating the debt. Then inflation came. Now everybody feels it, and now nobody kids about the debt.
Right.
And we were attacked. You guys are going, the debt's no problem at all. Spending is no problem. Blah, blah. Bam. There you go. Inflation. All of a sudden, the debt sucks. All of a sudden, we have $1.2 trillion in interest on the debt. Math and economics matters. If you wish to ignore it, you do so at your own peril.
Yeah. It's, again, observation here. This isn't opinion. It's not going to, you're not going to see going forward this magic wand all of a sudden change things, and it happened quickly. Trump mentioning pain in his Truth Social post is the first time he's done that. Why? And also ask yourself, if tariffs are great, why not 100% across the board, every nation?
Well, that argument Trump now has taken out because he's admitted it can cause pain, which is the first time that he's admitted.
That's why I coupled those points. Exactly.
Yeah.
You see what's going on. And why 10% on China? Again, why not 100% across the board? Every nation. If it works. Because the pain would be massive. It's why they had to reconsider on oil coming from Canada. At first they were saying, okay, no tariffs on the oil. Well, we got to do something. We'll do 10. So you have to ask yourself, why is that? It's just like the government setting the minimum wage. You're going to set minimum wage? All right, you're going to do that where? You're going to, well, why not? If it's good for the economy, Keynesian economics is comes to mind when they talk about it on the left. Well, we need to raise it. We need to raise it. Why do they always raise it in small increments? To temper the pain that's felt in the economy. States, local areas that went to $15, $20 an hour, they saw an effect on jobs, a negative effect. The government manipulates. Here's the question. If you believe in that kind of true free market approach, then why not the Ron Paul method? Ron Paul, not Rand. Ron Paul. Unmanaged free trade. No government should be able to tell you what you can sell somewhere else in the world. You make a widget, you should be able to sell it anywhere in the world. The government should get out of it. Well, you're not going to see that. You're clearly not going to see that here.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Let's go to Harvey in Pennsylvania. Harvey, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to say you're exactly right when you said yesteryear is not today. You know, this tariff policy would have made sense if this was the 1970s, before we shipped all the factories overseas, before the deindustrialization of America caused by plant obsolescence and the high cost of labor.
Well, let me ask you this.
We don't make any.
Let me ask you this question. Do we manufacture more or less than we did, let's say, in the year 2000?
Well, okay. I live in a small, medium-sized town. I'll give you an example.
No, I'm asking a question. Overall, does this economy manufacture more in the same real dollars than we did 25 years ago?
Well, we don't manufacture things like we used to. The town I used to live in, we made pocketbooks there.
That's not my question.
Huh?
That's not my question, whether there have been changes in the economy and where we produce things. Do we, because the thing you said was we don't manufacture here like we used to, which, of course, is correct. Yes. We manufacture in different ways. But what about the amount and capacity? For example, we actually, by capacity, if you want to compare us to 2000, by capacity of what we actually produce, the goods and service, the goods we produce in the automobile industry is up 71% over the last 27 years. Overall, manufacturing over the last 25 years is up 55% in real dollars. It's the same dollars. It's not taken for inflation. So we actually produce more. Now, it's less of the actual economy. But as was pointed out, the Wall Street Journal pointed it out from government figures, because we have really a North American Union in producing automobiles, everyone's going to the other country to produce what they can produce cheaper and then going back to the other countries where, for example, automobiles and parts cross Canada, Mexico, and the United States border 6 times or more. And capacity in the United States for production is up 71% in the last 25 years. That's the point. We aren't manufacturing less. We have fewer employees because we're more efficient.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. You know, the one thing, looking at different government figures and different analysis of the manufacturing base in the United States, which has increased with, capacity dollars, whatever. Mm-hmm. Now, it's continually be less and less the GDP as, tech and service industry keep going, keep booming in the United States, especially tech. But we are increasing what we produce in the United States each and every year. Now, we went down in 2020, but the thing is, it's tough to compare. It's like, okay, I got to do more analysis because it's tough to compare one survey to another survey, even if they're government figures, when the people who do the survey say, well, we're going to do this in 2017 dollars versus current dollars.
Right, yeah.
Or $1999, like, So I like when you do it in current dollars because then I can relate. It's very easy. It's in current dollars now.
Right.
Back to them. But that's the point of looking at the U.S. Trade Representative statistics on an automobile.
Right.
That we've basically increased capacity, which is what we sell in automobiles and automobile parts from the United States, 71%. Now, what does that mean? We had the caller before saying, but it's assembled. But is assembly really the most money in it? You and I remember the iPhone?
Mm-hmm.
Because Apple had the proprietary thing. Yeah, it was assembled in China, but as they showed, there were over 400 manufacturers, like 28 countries, 68 manufacturers in the United States, but most of the profit was by Apple. Why? Because it was all their stuff.
Right. Yeah.
It was their proprietary stuff.
Right.
So they made most of the profit on it. So the one caller was saying, well, it's assembled. Well, something may be assembled. It's like Toyota vehicles, Nissan vehicles, every single foreign manufacturer, the vast majority of them have plants in the United States because it's cheaper to produce it here and sell it here.
Right.
And as we all know, I don't know what it is right now. Let me just see. I guess they do the statistic every year. What is the, what car is
the most American
made
car?
Most American made. Let's see what it is this year. Here we go. Tesla and Honda.
All right.
But you're not selling a lot of Teslas compared to Hondas.
Right. That's about the components and the manufacturing and the jobs, basically, and where all the parts are sourced.
Let me see. Honda vehicles often placed near the top of the American-made index. The Honda Passport, Ridgeline, Odyssey are built in Alabama. The Acura MDX and RDX are built in Ohio. The Volkswagen ID4 is made in Tennessee. The Jeep Gladiator is assembled in Toledo. The Toyota Camry is assembled in Georgetown, Kentucky. The Lexus TX and Toyota Highlander are assembled in Princeton, Indiana. The American-made index is the annual ranking of vehicles based on factors, the assembly location, parts content, engine origin, transmission origin, and U.S. manufacturing workforce.
Right.
So it's
so there's this interesting political environment in the wake of the tariffs being announced. Because I'm going through all the different media coverage. That's basically a lot of what I've been doing. And, who's covering what, who has quotes from who, right? Sean Fain issued a statement, the UAW president, and, saying, all right, any tariff action must be followed with a renegotiation of the USMCA and a full review of the corporate trade regime that has devastated the American and global working class. Again, that's Sean Fain from the UAW. Okay, well, we haven't heard anything on the total renegotiation of the USMCA. I don't know that I missed that over the weekend from Trump.
No.
Okay, so I know what he's trying to say, and again, it's the union head at the UAW. But then you get into, all right, a story from CNBC. General Motors and other major automakers did not immediately respond for comment regarding the tariffs Saturday night. Others, such as Ford, declined to comment. They don't want to comment. Why is that? Well, it's this unique political environment we're in. Trump won. By the way, we can point back to Sean Fain. A great deal of our union members are going to be voting for Trump. He said that months before the election. Remember that? And so there is this momentum coming in. And you don't want to be the GM or the Ford CEO, coming out, this is outrageous. You're basically what you're going to do is you're going to lobby. And you're going to do it probably fairly quietly. I mean, at some point they're going to make a statement. But the point being is the incoming administration is favored. He won. He won the popular vote. And so you got to come in and ease into it. But the problem is there, too, is we have to, you look at Sean Fain. Now, we have to be careful because union leadership and union membership sometimes not on the same page, as Sean Fain pointed out in that aforementioned comment he made with, and I'd love to see the actuals on that, by the way, what percentage of UAW union members voted for Trump. I'd love to see what the actual turnout, the final was on that, right? We probably never will. But there's your political environment because you don't want to be, I mean, Sean Fain's going to say, you're going to just talk in terms of the union, right? Union membership is probably rank and file going, well, what is this going to mean for our jobs? What's going to happen here? Now you cross your fingers and hope that the OEMs that you build for are going to do what the previous caller said. Well, just move it all back here. You can cross your fingers all you want. I don't know that that's going to happen overnight. That's only going to happen if they believe this is going to be long-term. That's where we are right now. The markets don't know how long-term this is going to be. The OEMs have been quiet on this in recent weeks. They were quiet over the weekend and still really haven't said much.
Just to show you again, because I've got it. I've got the figure here. Except for Tesla, that had 3 in the top 10 for American-made, the most American-made vehicles. Are you ready?
Okay.
In the top 10.
Okay.
Honda Passport, Honda Odyssey, Honda Ridgeline, Volkswagen ID4, Toyota Camry, Jeep Gladiator, Lexus TX, Honda Highlander, and the Acura RDX.
Okay.
The most American-made. That's the thing that we're dealing with out there. That's why it's so hard. You have got a world where everything is everywhere.
Yeah.
Where the most American-made vehicles are not American names.
Right. And the parts are made all over the world.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole point.
Right, but it's including American-made parts in these also. They're the more American-made parts.
Yeah, what is the criteria? How do they build the criteria for the list?
It's hang on here.
Based on parts, it's based on where they're assembled,
location of final assembly, percentage of U.S. and Canadian parts, country of origin for available engines,
right?
Country of origin for available transmissions, U.S. manufacturing employees relative to the automobile maker's footprint.
Okay. Jobs and parts, basically. I mean,
jobs and parts. Yeah. And that's what you're dealing with. It's not where you make something fully, and some people still believe that. Well, they make it all in. Well, no, they don't.
Right.
It's like the last caller. We don't make anything here anymore. Well, sure we do.
Well, and you look at again, like it or not, it's not even the point. It doesn't matter. It's the situation we're in, where they manufacture all over the world. Remember when Harley Davidson announced that they were going to start building bikes in India? People freaked out. Oh my gosh. I don't want to buy. Can you, an American company going to, well, it was to service that market because they saw this emerging market there in India, and it's cheaper to build them there and sell them to the people there. Go back to 2008, 2009, when the domestic OEMs were bleeding cash. And if not for their foreign arms, their foreign sales, they would have been gone long before 2008, 2009, that fourth quarter of 2008 and first quarter of 2009. It was the bridge loan and then the ultimate bailout for GM. And if they hadn't had their foreign arm, their foreign sales in place, then the company would have been done long those companies
that,
would have
yeah.
been gone long before that. The point being is it affects their global footprint too. Those are the things you have to consider. It goes both ways. Exports is a massive part of the economy. Trucking is a huge part of exports. There are things here that we do to facilitate all that. And I know everybody wants to build their dream of having everything self-contained and right here at home, but it doesn't work that way. And that tube is a really old tube to put toothpaste back in. It's never going to happen. It's certainly not in our lifetime.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just did some figuring because I saw Governor Abbott came out and initially has supported Trump on the tariffs. Over 17% of Texas economy based on exports.
Right.
11% overall in the U.S.
Right.
Much greater in Texas. One of the reasons why chemicals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of them, a lot of them based on what? We've got refineries here in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's head to Kyle in Pennsylvania. Kyle, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
So I understand what you guys are saying. Like it's going to be a 50% increase in tariffs on both ends, and if you got products crossing the border multiple times, that's going to be pretty expensive. Now, would it be possible for that to mostly companies that probably left in the last 4 years or so, if they came back here, do you think the corporate tax rates would offset the cost of the tariff if they manufactured here?
Well, no, not if they've already left. If they've left, I mean, because if they left in, because the corporate tax rate was what in the first year of the Trump, that was 2017. So that would have been almost 8 years ago if they would have left 9 years ago because of that. If you said in the last 4 or 5 years, the corporate tax rate was 21%.
Yeah. Regulation, deregulation, and corporate tax rates, would that offset the tariff?
I don't know. Depends what business you're in and what the cost of parts is, and because if parts cross the border, as we say multiple times, and get tariffed at every time, and you're in that business, well, then it would cost you more to be back in the United States. It depends what the business is. Yeah, I don't know, but what Trump can do, and he's doing that's absolutely correct, is we need to be the energy leader of the world and be able to export as much as possible and have energy extremely cheap, especially electricity. We need to get into nuclear or whatever, and for Trump to come out and say, look, wind and solar is garbage. It's ridiculous to have to subsidize our initial form of electricity and then subsidize the backup, which we don't have to subsidize if they're the energy sources in the forefront, natural gas and whatever out there. So cheap electricity, less regulation. Getting rid of DEI. Companies dropping DEI. Right. That could save them 2 or 3% of their overall budget. Right. Because these companies went crazy into it.
Yeah.
And so if you talk about regulations across the board, lower tax rates, that's what they but you got to it's got to be long term, but if you get them in,
we'll see.
Yeah, it's always a we'll see.
Yep.
Always a we'll see.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.